2025 marks a very important year in Brompton's history because it's their 50th anniversary. And to launch the anniversary, they started with the G-Line bike, which is an absolutely phenomenal bike, completely designed from the ground up. And we saw a bunch of uniformity begin to occur on all the other Brompton lines, excluding the A-Line. So if you're not familiar with Brompton, there's the C-Line bike, which is an all-steel bicycle, the P-Line bike, which is half steel and half titanium, so it's getting lighter, and then the T-Line bike, which is super light, all titanium, it's some carbon fiber bits. And all bikes, as of this year, now feature 4 or 12-speed drivetrain. And this is remarkable because they're really committed to what we're going to call backwards and forwards compatibility. So if you, for instance, were a person who bought a 1982 Brompton bicycle and came into our store to get something repaired or fixed or replaced, chances are very, very high that most parts from 2025 will fit. The thing is, though, is if you own an older model of Brompton, to make it now part of the new era of forward compatibility, you would be buying a completely new rear frame. And the rear frame is what really makes the 2025 bikes all very, very different from everything that came before it. And the rear frame on these new Brompton bikes is called the MK6. Then MK6 replaces the previous MK5 frame. The difference between the MK5 frame and the MK6 frame is simply that the MK6 frame, fundamentally, it's wider. A wider hub on the bike, and that allows them to put more cogs onto that hub, which allow for much greater gear range. And this is incredibly important because it follows a long, long path. In fact, it's really the summation of a long journey that Brompton has been going on since they started, and since they started using 3-speed hubs. While greater gear range usually meant a bike that's designed, for more than just commuting, it's also designed for, like, say, longer distances of traveling. Brompton is a company that started building bikes for commuters, and they really want to make a lightweight, simple bike. And so what they've done with the 6-speed bike is build 2 different varieties, one the 6-speed and one a bike that was stripped of the internal gear hub, so it was simply just a 2-speed. But that 2-speed bike made no sense. There was almost no difference between gear 1 and gear 2. And so the goal was to build a better 6-speed bike for those who needed a lot of gear range. So with the advent of the 12-speed bike, we suddenly see a whole new rear frame emerge. Indeed, this frame is backwards compatible and forwards compatible. You could take your 6-speed bicycle and install a brand new frame on it, but of course that starts to get quite expensive when you have to consider that you've got to buy a new wheel as well. So in some ways, the 12-speed and 4-speed system does make, in some sense, obsolete all the frames that came before. Now, the 12-speed bike is a remarkable accomplishment. If we fit the Brompton buyer into 2 different user groups, those who are buying the bike strictly for utilitarian city use, and another group of those who are using the bike to take onto an airplane, do a big multi-day tour in Europe, what have you, the new 12-speed system and the new 4-speed system really answer this better than the previous 6-speed and 2-speed system. The 12-speed has a massive gear range. I mean, you could climb like Mount Everest on this bicycle. And the 4-speed has a really, really perfect gear spread. Other improvements, however, were made to the rear frame as they were developing this new 12 or 4-speed bicycle. One of the problems with the old MK5 frame, so again, that's the 6-speed frame, is that the easy wheels, which are the wheels that allow you to tow the bicycle and use this sort of shopping cart mode when the bike is folded, those easy wheels could bend quite easily if you took the bike, say, onto a plane. So Brompton was aware of this problem, and they did a massive new redesign of the rear frame, featuring almost like this boom tube, really, really large diameter chromoly steel to solve this problem. So that's one big improvement. The other big improvement is the use of a new rear rack. So if you'd see the old Brompton MK5 frames, everything that came before it, there's one accessory that went onto the Brompton bikes that sort of looked like it was from like the 70s. It was their rear rack, and indeed it looks a lot like the rear racks you'd see on an old Deed-speed racing bike. Instead of using modern tubular aluminum, which is quite light, it was actually this cast alloy, which had this sort of like retro look. The new MK6 rear frame now features a rack that's quite a bit lighter, uses tubular aluminum, and allows the bike to roll so much better And also, it allows the bike to have slightly larger rolling wheels, which is a big convenience if you're taking a bike shopping or you're rolling it around the GO train station as you're waiting for the train to pull out. So in conclusion, if the year is still 2025 or 2026 and you're watching this, indeed, there's quite a few 6-speed bikes left. And the reason for this is we're in post-COVID excess inventory. Many retailers are still sitting on 6-speed stock, but it leaves the consumer especially with a pretty big decision. Do you buy a 6-speed for a slightly lower price and then sort of suffer with the constant two-shifter shifting all the time? And in the case of the 4-speed, you're getting a bike that finally really fits that original Brompton use case. You live in a condo, you take the subway, you just need a really, really simple bike that can travel to work, travel onto the GO trains, really easy to lift, especially walking upstairs, but still has a decent gear spread. We like to think that the 12-speed represents the new way going forward for Brompton, and while the 12-speed is in fact backwards and forwards compatible with previous bikes and massive gear range, you also get a lot more ease of use. So even though that there's actually more speeds, there's actually less shifting happening, and that's really, really nice. So less fuss, more capacity.